Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Comic Book Cover, Episode 5, Convergence Strikes Back.
Striking back?
It is striking back. So real quick, Greg Capullo is going to be leaving Batman after 51 for just a short bit to work with Mark Millar, or Miller, whichever you prefer.
Well, I think you could go either way on that one.
Yeah.
Miller.
I like Millar because he's Scottish.
Yeah, that works. I notice a lot of guys in the comic book industry have those names.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like their variant covers.
They're variant covers.
We have variant names.
Variant last names.
And speaking of people leaving, John Romita Jr. leaving Superman.
Yeah, and you know, I've not been the biggest Romita fan. I've criticized him a little bit because I don't think he's as good as his dad. But I've enjoyed his run with, I can't pronounce the guy's name, but the guy that took over after Jeff Johns. The Truth Story. He's done a really good job.
Something with names.
Yeah, lots of names. There's lots of names it's hard to pronounce. Howard Porter is going to be taking over, and he worked with Grant Morrison on JLA, so that's pretty cool.
So you know that's going to be good stuff. And speaking of Morrison, Wonder Woman, Earth 1.
It's finally coming out.
Yes, Grant Morrison and
Yannick Piquet. I can say that name. I said it. It's Yannick Piquet. And he is awesome. His Swamp Thing run with Scott Snyder was killer. Great panel. And
I think we've mentioned the whole Swamp Thing before. Usually that's where you find a lot of your elites if they've worked on Swamp Thing.
Yeah, Morrison and Millar both worked on Swamp Thing together. So that should tell you something. Millar.
Miller.
So yeah, I mean, this Wonder Woman thing's been in the works for a while, and just now getting to the point where we're going to be seeing something from it.
You could almost call this the year of Morrison.
It is the year of Morrison.
Yes.
Nameless is finishing up. We've got 18 Days. Klaus is coming out. Lots of cool Morrison stuff. And Multiversity 2 should be coming out next year. But so will Wonder Woman Earth 1.
Yeah, and then the thing with Boom that he did. And
yeah.
He is the comic king. He can do anything.
He's the rock star. He is the comic king. That was good. Well, Jim Morrison there. I bet Morrison would appreciate that.
Oh, he's probably said it himself at a few cons.
Yeah. I'm the comic king. I can do anything.
Just hopping on the table and, you know, like Morrison wouldn't wear lizard skin pants.
And Aquaman's like Neptune. So, speaking of next year, there's been rumors that Marvel's going to do Civil War 2 because of the movie coming out. Some people are saying that they had the exclusive news, but there's never been an official thing, so we're not going to jump on saying this is an exclusive update, just the speculation.
Yeah, well, you know how the rumor mill works on things like that.
And everybody wants to be the first to jump into saying they know.
You want it to happen, and then somebody somewhere sees somebody in a costume walking into a certain building, and then, oh, that must be the...
Well, you know...
But I could see it. I could see them doing it, though, because they've been very strategic with this.
It's a very good marketing plan.
Well, you see how the cinematic universe is taking more of a hold in the comic universe. You know, a lot of titles altering themselves to tie in a bit more. Some titles being strategically dropped, or characters being strategically dropped. You know, in what could, you know, may or may not be an effort to get the rights back. You know.
That would be awesome if they could get rights back to some of their characters that have strayed off.
Yeah, so I could see that.
Fantastic Four, I really feel like needs to be a part of the Infinity Gauntlet.
Oh yeah, well, most definitely that needs to be brought in. They were a huge part of it, and you know that's why I could see, even though it's rumors, I could see a Civil War 2.
My question is, would it have the same impact? Because at the time it was like, oh, you had heroes, you know, you're questioning who was good and who was bad, and they've done that since. Like, I've been reading Time Runs Out, which led into Secret Wars, and you've got them like Reed Richards and Doctor Strange are all like, you know, these good guys are bad guys. According to Steve Rogers and company and S.H.I.E.L.D., they're bad guys.
Well, the first time they did it was really topical, too.
Yeah, and it's
so you kind of have to wonder, when you revisit the conversation, does it have the same... They couldn't just go back and do it on what they did originally.
The question is, will it be their Convergence? And speaking of Convergence... our featured comic, Superman and Lois. Clark and Lois.
Yeah, Superman...
Lois and Clark, actually.
Three's Company.
Super duper. But it's the #1 issue. It's spin-off from the Convergence titles. This is one of two I'm interested in. I'm not that interested in Telos, but this and Titan's Hunt I think look pretty interesting. You've got Superman and Lois. They've been married. They have a 9-year-old son now.
Mm-hmm.
They're on a new world. He's trying to face these villains. She's discovering Intergang. I mean, it's Dan Jurgens too, and he's a Superman alumni. So
yeah. Well, you got to think that this has to almost be like a ramping up point, you know, because here's Lois going back to her old tricks, poking her nose in places where it doesn't belong. Intergang. So now,
yeah, I wonder
hijinks ensue.
The question is Bruno Mannheim going to be in there?
My opinion, you have to be, man. I mean, ugly is the man. So moving on to Marvel.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff coming out. The last part of A-Force for Battle World.
Mm-hmm.
C. Willow Wilson, Jorge Molina. Jorge. It's the finale of the Battle World series, and then they're going to be going on to their own series. We've got Captain America Sam Wilson #1. It's got a new team with Nick Spencer and Daniel Acuna. I'm slightly interested, but it's still that Falcon Cap thing.
Well,
I'm hoping Steve Rogers is coming back soon.
Yeah, same here. Because when it comes to changing characters, I'm all for keeping characters fresh by trying new things, experimenting. Maybe put someone else in the suit for a little bit. It's worked with Batman many times. It's worked with a lot of other guys. But there's also, you know, in an instance like this, it's like, should Sam Wilson be Cap? I say no, because Sam Wilson is great on his own. He doesn't need to be in the Cap.
Falcon doesn't need to be Cap.
Yeah, and
it's different if it's Bucky.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, it kind of just takes me back to the whole like Cap debacle from days of old. You know, switching the Captain Americas, the Steve Rogers, we end up with this Icon guy or whatever. I always forget his name. The Guardian.
There's been a lot of not the Guardian. I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, so it's like
early.
So it's like, you know, enough people have played in Cap's suit.
Yeah,
and
exactly. And there's been clones of Steve Rogers.
Yeah, and we need to see more of Sam Wilson being Sam Wilson.
Mm-hmm. I want to see Falcon and Cap and Bucky.
Yeah, and the movies have really brought a breath of life into Falcon.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think this is the wrong time to put him in the Cap suit.
Speaking of Cap, though, we get Captain America White #3.
Yeah.
It's been a great story. Captain and Bucky are behind enemy lines.
Classic.
The Howling Commandos are captured, too. So who's going to get them out of this? It's a classic conundrum. It's Marvel at its best, in my opinion.
It's like when you flip on, like, MeTV or Nick at Night and you see, like, an old favorite show from when you were a kid that's got, like, that perfect story, that perfect, you know, and
Batman. Batman would be a prime example.
Yeah, exactly.
Chewbacca #1's coming out. Jerry Dugan's on it. I cannot pronounce. Phil Noto, maybe?
Phil Noto.
Basically, Chewie's stranded on an Imperial occupied planet.
After the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty cool. It's playing on the old stuff that we know so well.
Yeah, it's a good time to be looking at the Star Wars titles.
Civil War #5, since we've been talking about Civil War.
Yes.
This has been a great series. It's really going to be interesting to see how Steve Rogers and Tony Stark take this, because Tony is actually being framed, but Steve doesn't realize this. So I think this has been one of the best series in the whole Battle World thing.
It's really, you know, I mean, when you get into the Civil War stuff, you know, it's kind of hard to make a mistake with a story arc like that unless, you know, like we said a few minutes ago, unless you just go back and directly revisit it without doing anything new.
It helps if you're Charles Soule, that's for sure.
Yeah, most definitely.
Deadpool versus Thanos #3. Everybody loves that. We've talked about it a lot.
And
it's Deadpool versus Thanos.
What can I say? It's ridiculous on top of ridiculous. So, you know, it's going to be...
It's going to be good. That was creepy. Very creepy. I think we were talking about Guardians of the Galaxy before we got rudely interrupted by the camera battery guy.
I think we were... I could have sworn, I could be wrong, but weren't we standing over there a minute ago?
This is comic books, man. It's like time displacement in multiple universes.
Yeah, Morrison.
We were standing over there, but we were really over here.
Yes, that's right. Total Morrison thing. You know, it's we were thinking we wanted to be over there, and we were projecting our inner selves, and our harsh reality was
we're actually here.
Yes.
Fair stuff, and some comics that we said.
And speaking of your weirdness, yes, we were speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 1.
Star-Lord is
Star-
Emperor of Sparlax.
He is going off to try his hand at being the emperor of his people, being the emperor of Sparlax, but the team has decided to continue on with Rocket in charge. And of course, they've picked up some teammates in their adventures along the way, such as Venom,
That's an interesting one, if you ask me.
the Thing,
That's really interesting.
and Kitty Pryde is now Star Lady wearing Star-Lord's gear.
I mean, you know, they date, why not?
You know, it's like, hey, while I'm off doing this Emperor thing, I'm just gonna let my lady run my stuff, all right?
I'm gonna pick this one up because I'm excited about Guardians.
If I opened a file today, that would be the first title I would drop in. It would be the first one in my file if I were to open a file
Remember
today.
Star Wars and Star Trek.
Well, when you look at the current, you know, I mean, this is new. This is fresh.
Number 1, it's a jumping on point.
Yeah,
You should jump on it.
Exact. Jump on it.
You can jump on it like feet first. Jump
Like-
on it. Like that. Jump on it. It's number 1. Speaking of Star Wars, I love the speaking of segue. If
Yeah.
you haven't noticed.
Speaking of, you're
The,
speaking of segue.
Journey to Star Wars The Force Awakens, Shattered Empire, long title, number 3 of 4. So, the Greg Rucka-Chicato run is coming to its close. It's just a mini, I'm sure there's going to be more, but I'm pretty interested in this one. It's, last issue, we had a new character, a female character, that went with Leia as to Naboo, and we also found out the Emperor may not be dead. Either that or he's got some kind of projection of himself. He's given orders to blow up Naboo, which is his home planet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the genius of the Star Wars universe, though. Really, I mean, you can have stuff like that. Just be thankful that you don't have page after page of Jar Jar, considering we're on Naboo.
There's some interesting things concerning Jar Jar, or at least the Gungans. There's some interesting characters to show their faces in Star Wars issues lately. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and this wraps up their first new canon tale between 6 and 7. So once again, I mean, if you're excited about going and seeing episode 7 when it hits, this is a good time to be reading these issues, because this is going to give you, it's like that way when you're watching that opening scene, you're not like, how did we get here? You'll know how we got there.
You'll know. And it's just on issue 3. It's been selling pretty good. Miss Marvel number 19, we'll give that an honorable mention, and a few others.
And Miss Marvel deserves an honorable mention.
Of course, New Avengers number 1, Spider-Gwen number 1, Spider-Man 2099 number 1, a lot of number 1s coming out.
Yes, Uncanny Avengers, number 1.
I'm excited about this one just because this is the one with Steve Rogers running the show, and it's old Steve Rogers, and there's some additions to his team that are interesting. One in particular being, I mean, we're going to get Spider-Man, Rogue is in it, but the interesting one is Deadpool. Deadpool as an Avenger.
Yeah,
How do you feel about
well,
that?
Human Torch is on the team too, but Deadpool, it's like, huh?
Yeah.
Isn't he busy fighting Thanos right now?
I know we just took a break, but maybe we should take another break and come back, and we'll run through some independents real quick.
Okay.
We're back.
Yes, we are back. Now we're ready for our independent run, or lineup, as it were. It's early. I'm tongue tangled.
Yeah, it is early. I'm a sleepy guy. Low number 10, Rick Remender. It's obviously the 10th issue in his creator-owned series. Low, I've heard a lot of good stuff about it. If Josh was here, he'd tell you about it because he's reading it. But I am reading Tokyo Ghost, and I would say that is excellent. Savior number 7, which is Todd McFarlane's story, and it's kind of the antithesis of Spawn. You have a person from heaven who's come to help us.
So if you dug Spawn, if you dig McFarlane, check this out.
You should be checking it out. And it's pretty new, number 7. Walking Dead number 147. This is where Josh really is, because he's been keeping up, and I kind of dropped off. But he's told me a lot about it. This new group is pretty intense. Alpha is the name of the female leader. Her daughter is with Rick and them now. And she's definitely got the upper hand on Rick. So if you're a Walking Dead fan, you should be reading this
Yeah,
comic.
and if you're a Walking Dead fan, then there's probably nothing we really can tell you that you don't know, aren't expecting. Walking Dead fans are hardcore.
Very hardcore. Wicked Devon 15, East of West number 21, Jonathan Hickman's awesome run. I've heard lots of good stuff. Really looking to jump in on this one eventually myself, but I don't want to jump in at this point. It's not a jumping on.
No, you need a. There are jumping on points in runs and series and titles.
This just isn't one of them. But if you're reading, this is the comic to be getting.
Sex
Rebels
Criminals number
7.
13. You forgot Sex Criminals number 13?
I forgot Sex Criminals number 13.
How can you forget
Matt
those
Fraction.
Sex Criminals?
Everybody loves Matt Fraction. There's that. And then Dark Horse, we have Rebels number 7. This is one I wanted to mention. G.I. Joe, The Real American Hero, Cobra World Order Prelude number 1. Now this is leading into a big storyline. Larry Hama is still writing from the Marvel days.
Speaking of jumping on points, this is a jumping on point.
This is definitely a jumping on point.
It's-
jump on it.
Yeah, we're just they're just getting ready to go into a fresh new story arc. They expecting big things, talking of big things in the story arc. So I mean, whether you're a new fan or an old fan, you know, and you've been away from G.I. Joe for a little bit, this is a perfect time to jump in there.
I was reading in the beginning when IDW first picked up after the Marvel left off, and I love the series. I just had so many comics that kind of got lost in the shuffle. And that's one of my regrets too, because I really love that series. It's really good. So I'm kind of thinking about jumping on it.
Yeah, jump on it, both feet.
So that's the end. I guess we'll be taking a break again and come back talking about DC.
Yeah, we'll be right back, and we'll try not to teleport.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna go get my. Okay.
Oh wow.
There you go.
Yeah, I think we're at my bag too. Okay. DC Comics.
DC Comics.
I always love talking about DC Comics.
It always brings a certain kind of smile to my face.
Almost sound like a Joker.
Speaking of Joker, Batman number 45.
Yeah, Gordon's having to reevaluate his role as Batman right now. He's got a new threat with Mr. Bloom, and he's got big shoes to fill being in Bruce Wayne's shoes.
Well, yeah. Well,
Robot shoes.
yes, robot shoes, and apparently Bruce Wayne seems to have the biggest feet in the DC universe.
Unfortunately,
because
he can't remember his feet because he lost his memory.
Very unfortunate.
It's just been playing out across Detective. The last issue of Detective was really good. Peter Massey's back on that. But yeah, I mean, this is an interesting Batman story. Now it's kind of critical in the beginning, but it's showing it's keeping my interest because Gordon's place in this is definitely been a good read.
Well, that's why it's important to have, you know, a good crew working on Batman, because you have to have a certain type of storytelling, and any Batman fan will forgive a story with a slow start as long as it picks up and gets interesting along the way.
Speaking of Batman, one of my favorite comics right now is Batman and Robin Return. And number 2, because it's a weekly series that's coming out, and the last page of the last issue was a mind blower. I'm not going to give it away, but some of you can probably see the picture linked online. There's a new villain named Mother, and somehow she has control over orphans, but apparently Batman and Dick Grayson had worked this case back in the Batman and Robin days, so there's a lot of flashback stuff. Apparently Batman did something he's not proud of.
So did he, you know, kind of reminiscent over the whole, you know, it's like, oh, you knocked me into the chemicals, you created me. It's like, oh, is this going to happen again?
And yeah, because all the Robins are orphans,
Mhm.
and being that she has control over orphans, we haven't seen her, but it's been referred to. It's definitely going to play out to be very interesting. It's going to lead into Robin Wars and all that stuff.
Opens it up for a great ending.
Because next month is the 75th anniversary of Robin, not this month. I kind of made a mistake on that, but you know, next month.
Speaking of Batman,
Speaking of Batman,
Batman Superman.
number 25.
And oh man, I mean, Tony, is when you hear those two names together, you expect greatness.
Yeah, and right now Superman has his true story going on. everybody's got to deal with the revelation that everybody knows Superman's Clark Kent now. And not only that, he's going after the people that took his powers. And I guess he's got to pick up a new partner along the way.
Yeah. You know what's kind of cool about this is, you know, a lot of us, when we look at this, we're like, oh man, we're going back to the beginning with this. It's like, oh, Clark Kent's identity is being found out and and everything. But actually, I've begun to really like it, because now I know what the Superman fans felt like back in the 50s and 60s when all this stuff was first happening with them. Mm-hmm. Kind of makes me like the whole New 52 more when I look at it like that.
Dirty word.
I'm sorry.
You can't say you like the New 52.
No, it's bad.
I love the New 52. I don't care what anybody says.
It's great. It's great.
It's been interesting.
You know, and this is really cool. I mean, you're seeing new twists on old tales, and none of them have really been, you know, that disappointing.
No. There's been a few that I wasn't as into, but overall I think it's been really, really cool, really fun. And that's what reading comics is, right?
And
fun.
Yeah, speaking of cool and fun.
Catwoman 45.
She's cool, she's fun.
There's a tragedy, and Selena and Aiko pick up the pieces, and they got a turf war to kind of keep control of. As the revelation of the search for Batman is going to play out, he's trying to keep everything cool for the turf war. So it's an interesting sounding issue.
And going back to the old favorite, who is the Batman?
Yeah, exactly. Where is the Batman?
Who, where? Oh, I've found his shoes. They're really big.
Hellblazer #5, Constantine the Hellblazer, that's coming out. Earth 2 Society, there was a traitor among the Earth 2 group, and that the search is coming to a close now. They're on a different planet, and Jay Garrick. Jay Garrick. You will see him on the new Flash season coming out.
Jay Garrick.
He has to outrun his own fate on this new world, so always putting the Flash to the test, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, and hey, here's another speaking of. Speaking of Constantine a second ago, did you notice in the Legends of Tomorrow trailers, or was it Legends of Tomorrow, or was it the Arrow?
I think it was Arrow.
God, they've been just going through
He's
me in a blur.
supposed to be an Arrow with Flash.
Yeah, we're seeing so many.
Too.
Yeah, we've been seeing so many reveals for it and everything. But yes, I believe you're right. In the Arrow trailer, so at some point in time this season, Constantine, they canceled the show, but the man will be back.
I thought Matt Ryan was a great Constantine.
There's still, from what I saw, it's still
him.
him.
Yeah, it's still him. It's pretty awesome. I'm looking forward to that. I love that show. It shouldn't have got canceled. Harley Quinn #21. Harley goes to California, takes a bad turn because she's still a killer's gig, and he's not too happy about it.
Yeah. Oh, Harley, you so silly.
And her hijinks.
Yeah.
Justice League of America #4. Now this is one I'm really looking forward to too, because it's been an excellent story by Brian Hitch, writing and drawing. It was actually supposed to come out last month, but being he's writing and drawing, I give him for that.
And just like most of your great Justice League stories, the Flash, centered around the Flash.
He has to get back to the rest of the group as they're getting ready to take on the Church of Rao. And they also have to prevent the inevitable death of Superman, because as we saw in issue 2, there are many Supermans kept showing up from the future dead. So
that's got to be unnerving.
I mean, the best stories are always a big conundrum, and you have to work it out.
Superman's here to save the day. Oh no, this one's dead too.
Yeah. And there's like a bunch of them just laying there all dead, and he's like, what? I mean, he was definitely taken off by that one. Justice League United #14, this one's coming to a close because this is one of the titles that was canceled, and I hate to see it go because it was cool. It had Russian Manhunter and Supergirl, a lot of characters I really like in there. Mm-hmm. Red Hood and Arsenal 5, Starfire #5. Everybody loves the Starfire comic. It's been doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's well, you know, as long as they keep, out of the Teen Titans, everybody liked Starfire. Mm-hmm. That seemed to be a favorite character. And
I love the original Titans group.
Yeah, and as long as they keep rebooting the cartoons, even though this latest one, I think the entire world is pretty much agreed, is horrible. It keeps the Starfire fans going.
We're supposed to get a TV show soon, so I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that. Basically, her and her new hero friend are trying to just, uncover the mysteries of these creatures beneath the earth, but they're also having to deal with unemployment. So it's that typical kind of Amanda Connor thing. If you liked Harley Quinn's comic, you'll like Starfire. So, and it's just on #5 once again. You can jump on it.
Jump.
Like that.
Both feet.
Both feet. Finally, we have our From the Vaults.
Some nice treats from the vault, I noticed.
Where we have that, cool little intro thing that we'll probably have here. We've already passed it. Right?
Yeah, we might have passed it. Something about we got comics from the vault.
We got comics from the vault.
Yes, we do. And some tasty treats they are, I noticed when you were bringing them out
These
of
are
that
some
dusty
tasty
old vault.
treats.
Look at this.
I've never actually seen one of these before, so I thought this was pretty cool. Number 2, V for Vendetta.
I have seen, but haven't held until now.
That is pretty awesome.
I mean, and
David Lloyd, Alan Moore,
and
Dave Gibbons, and Alan Moore. Watchmen,
Yes.
number 1.
and I think we can all safely say that this baby right here and this baby right here had a major hand in bringing us the comic cinematic universe that we have today.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, movies adapted from comics, great comics, get adapted into movies. Blockbuster movies, it finally gives Hollywood, the confidence in investing big bucks in this stuff.
Yeah, and these were 2 of the best. I think Watchmen was probably a little bit more, because V for Vendetta, I think, is definitely one of those. The book is a better read but the movie is great.
Well, it's not your standard comic book per se.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, I love that story.
Oh yes, excellent story. I mean, it's the stuff you usually find in novels.
Mm-hmm.
In your big books.
And it reads like a novel.
It really does.
It's kind of like a noir thing when you read it.
Yeah, and you got the philosophy all the way through and
it's
everything. And,
one of my favorite stories by Alan Moore. Both of these are.
Yeah, and once again, that whole philosophy and all that stuff, once again, Alan Moore, he shows that in The Watchmen as well. Who watches The Watchmen? But, you have to say, this one, not your typical comic book story. This one, your typical comic book story cranked up to 11.
And that was the original. A lot of people do the thing now where we explore, if people really had superpowers and what impact would that have. This was the first one to really do that. So,
yeah, it made a realistic scenario, and one of the things I loved about it is the superhero characters that it gave us. They were like superheroes. You could actually this guy could exist in real life.
Yeah, Rorschach the comedian. I love Dr. Manhattan. There's so many of those characters that I really love, and I even liked the Before Watchmen series, which I know a lot of people complained about, but I liked it.
Oh, no complaints from me.
We got comics from the vault because we know comics, and you can get these comics at B&B and the Money Tree.
Yes, and speaking of, and you mentioned a rumor earlier. I ran across a rumor myself.
What's that?
As a matter of fact, I ran across this rumor yesterday. I ran across a rumor that mentioned more Watchmen coming to the screen.
That's pretty cool. I wonder if they're going to do Before Watchmen. I heard there's going to be a mini-series on HBO, is it?
That's exactly what I was speaking of. That's the rumor, but
That's a cool rumor.
But I haven't. What I read on it, it was just mentions. I mean, once again, for all I know, maybe the project has already gotten the green light. But I'm hesitant to jump on that for the same reason you are. It's like, well, someone could have just seen someone walk through a certain door, jump to a conclusion. But Watchmen miniseries.
Still speculation, just like the Titan show I mentioned earlier. So we're not going to jump on and say, "Hey, we got the exclusive news." We just know that there's rumors, and hey, that's a cool rumor to have.
Yeah, and what we've been seeing on the small screen, they know how to do it. So I would expect good things if they did it.
So we'll leave you with this: if you get 5 or more comics in your file here at DME, you get 25% off. Pretty much like a free comic.
It's like having a free comic just handed to you. Just thank you for ordering these 4 comics. We'll throw in a 5th for free.
And that's about as cool as it gets. And plus, if you go to Money Tree, you get 10% off any back issues.
And you should definitely jump on that deal.
And on that note, we leave. You guys have a good one. We'll see you next week.
Excelsior.